Hey everybody, how's it going? Today we're going to be going over and showing you how to install the Roadmaster Diode 7 to 4 wire wiring kit here on our 2018 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited. So our diode wiring kit in our most basic form, it's going to transfer the signals from our motorhome to our towed vehicle. Now the reason we need to do this is it's going to allow us to remain up to code for all local state rules and regulations. So while we're in our motorhome and we're signaling to others what we're going to be doing, we're obviously not going to be able to see the taillights on the motorhome, or at least not very well for those behind you. Therefore, we need to transfer those signals over here to our towed vehicle so others on the road can see what we're doing. So with this kit here, we're going to get all of our basic signals and lighting. We're going to get the taillights as well as the stop and turn signal circuits for both the driver and passenger side. So this particular kit here is going to utilize a 7 to 4 wire umbilical cord here. So more than likely on our RV we're going to have a 7-way that's pretty standard for these RVs, but we need to adapt that to a 4-way here on our towed vehicle. Now because we only need the running lights and the stop and turn signal circuits, the 4-way is going to have all those circuits, plenty for what we're using it for. Therefore the 7-wire to 4-wire is going to be an excellent option for this Jeep. So this kit does utilize 4 diodes. And what the diodes essentially do is they're going to install in line between the factory taillights and the factory taillight circuits. We're then going to tee into that with our motorhome signal. So in order to prevent any lighting issues from the motorhome from transpiring over here on the Jeep, we don't want to damage the electricals on the Jeep. Therefore the diodes are going to stop the backfeed of electricity so the signal can only travel one way. So the first step of our installation, we're going to take our bonded 4-pole harness here, and we're going to give ourselves a little bit of extra to work with. So give yourself about a foot or so of this wiring harness tied to the front of our base plate kit here. If you don't already have your base plate kit installed, you can go ahead and just wrap it around, coil it up here. And then what we did is we actually drilled a hole using a step drill bit through this plastic skid shield here, because that's what we used as a pass-through to come back behind the vehicle here. And now we're just going to work our way to the rear taillights here, securing our wiring harness, most likely through the frame. We'll show you that next. So here we have our bonded 4-pole coming out behind that skid shield here. In your kit, you're going to get some wire loom here. I suggest using that on this first couple feet of our harness here. And then we just simply have it ran up here. I have a couple zip ties securing it to the power steering lines. These are pretty stable, so they shouldn't be moving around too much. And then I came up and over the axle here. And now we have it coming out just on top of this bracket here for our brake lines. I'm going to use a couple zip ties and secure it to this so it doesn't drop down or get inside our braking assemblies or mess with the wheels or anything. And then we're actually going to have an access hole inside the frame here. We're going to feed our wire through that. We're going to run it all the way to the rear near our taillights. So now that we have our bonded 4-pole harness here at the rear of the vehicle, the next thing we need to do is to actually remove the taillights so we can access the wires behind them. So we're going to come in directly behind our taillights inside the vehicle here. We're going to see these little plastic covers here. We need to go ahead and remove this with a flathead screwdriver. And then it's going to reveal a plastic nut here, which we'll take out with a 10mm socket. And here's what that looks like. So with our fastener removed, we should just be able to pull straight out on our taillight to remove it. And we're going to go ahead and remove this connector. It's going to be that red safety tab. We're going to press that back, and we're going to depress it and pull out. So once you get the taillights free, we're going to see our connectors here, and you're going to have some fabric tape here going all the way from back here where it enters the cab to the end of our connector. So what you need to do is you're going to actually be taking some sort of razor blade, and we're just going to be piercing that fabric tape so we can spread it back far enough that we can install our diodes. Now the fabric tape is a little bit of a pain in the butt here. You just need to make sure that while we're cutting this that we don't pierce our wire. So you need to be careful about it. It is going to take you a little bit of time, but this is about how much we need to install our diodes. So we've got our wires pulled up through an access hole in the bottom of this taillight pocket here. It was actually, we had to go up and over the frame, and it's just actually a little bit on the other side of where we came out of the access hole in the frame. You have to get down on the ground and reach up and push your wires through that hole there. It wasn't actually too hard. Now, depending on which side of the frame we ran our wires on, we actually came down the passenger side. Therefore, we're going to be separating out our yellow wire here before we pull up these other 3 wires here into the taillight pocket on the passenger side. The next step would be to go ahead and test all of our wires here. That way we know which one is for the stop/turn signal circuit and which one is for the running light circuit. But we've already done the hard work for you, and we're going to tell you now. This lime green wire here is going to be for the stop/turn signal circuit, and this white wire here with an orange stripe, may look a little bit red, that's going to be for the running light circuit. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cut our green wire about halfway in between where the harness comes out and the end of our pigtail here. We want to give ourselves enough room to work. We're going to cut that. We're going to strip off some of the jacket. And then we're going to take one of our diodes here. We're going to be taking the one with the blue connectors. We're going to take off one of these spade terminals, and I'm going to crimp that on to our wire. Make sure you get a good crimp on here. I always like to just jiggle them a little bit too after it to make sure it is on there secure. I'm going to do the same thing for this other end of the green wire. Now I'm going to take the green wire here that came from our bonded 4-pole. I'm going to cut off the excess. And again, I am going to crimp on another spade terminal. Now we'll go ahead and connect our first diode. The outside on the diode is going to go to the pigtail, our singular wire. And then it doesn't matter which one we put these in. Just go ahead and connect them. Now we're going to take our diode with our 2 blue connectors and our yellow one, and we're going to do the same process here for the running light circuit, which is the white/orange wire. So the only thing we're going to be doing different for this other diode here, we're going to take the yellow connector, which is the only different one in the kit here, and we're going to have the running light wire that came down. This was actually the one that went to the front of the vehicle. Then we're going to take the extra brown wire that we cut off, and we're going to tie these 2 together. Just going to spin those 2 strands around, and I'm going to crimp on this yellow larger butt connector here. And the reason we did that is this is going to be our jumper wire that we're going to use to transfer the running light circuit over to the driver's side. We'll just go ahead and make our connections now. So again, the outside goes to the connector in. And I'm going to take this brown wire here. I'm going to feed it back down through the hole that we drew our wires up through earlier. So now finally we're going to have our white wire here, which is for our ground. I'm going to go ahead and cut the excess off. And I'm going to crimp on the ring terminal that came in our kit. We're also going to get a self-tapping screw, which we can use to ground it to the body inside here of the taillight pocket. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and attach our diodes together so you don't have to worry about them flopping around. Just peel the sticky back off and stick them together like so. Now we can reinstall our taillight. I'm going to run the brown jumper wire along with our yellow wire down underneath here over to the driver's side. We'll meet you over there. There's going to be this same hole, that little taillight access hole at the back here that we can use for entry into the taillight pocket here. It was the same as over on the passenger side. Now keep in mind, you may or may not need to extend your yellow and brown wires. It just depends on how you ran your wires. So we have them down here, and we basically just repeated the same process that we did on the passenger side here over on the driver's side. The only difference is we don't have to run that jumper wire for the brown because the jumper wire is the one we ran over here. One note though, for the harness here, the yellow wire is going to be responsible for the left stop/turn, and then the white wire with the gray stripe is going to be responsible for the running light circuit. And now we'll just reinstall our taillight for this side as well. I will keep in mind, if you guys haven't done this before and you're not super confident with your connections and your wiring, you can actually leave the taillights off until we test everything. I did this quite a few times though, so I'm pretty confident we got everything correct. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and reinstall the taillights. So now with all of our diodes installed, we're going to come back to the front of the vehicle. We're going to be installing the trailer connector. So what we're going to do now is, we got some extra wire here, we've made sure of that. We're going to go ahead and cut some of that excess off. And then we're going to begin separating each of these. So now that we have our wires separated, we're ready to mount our trailer connector here. So this is what the bracket that's going to look like that comes in your kit. Now this may vary a little bit depending on whether or not you have these two tabs here welded to your base plates. That's what we're actually going to be using to attach this bracket. But if not, there's some holes up at the top here along with a little flange. We could easily just mount that like so, or we could mount it up underneath in there. It's really just going to depend on whether or not we have these existing tabs. But since we do, we're going to utilize them. So at this point, I'm going to take these self-tapping screws in our kit. I'm going to attach our bracket here to the base plate. Now we can take our wires and we'll feed them through the center hole. So now we'll take our trailer connector here. We're going to notice we have a little tiny screw up at the top. I'm going to go ahead and remove that. Once we remove that, we should be able to open up the trailer connector here. We may need to push it from the back side, but this should come out. So now we will begin stripping off some of the jacket for each of our 4 wires here. We're going to take our trailer connector here. I'm going to feed them through the back like so. I'm going to pull them out. Let the lid close on them to hold them in place. And then we're actually going to install the little insert that we removed earlier. Now there's going to be a diagram to follow in our instructions here, but one thing you do need to make note of is that the nut here is going to be facing up. So now we'll just go ahead and make our connections. And there we have it. Now we'll go ahead and insert the insert back into our connector here, making sure that that nut is facing up. And then we can come back and reinstall our screw. And once that's done, we'll go ahead and mount the connector to our bracket here. And that's going to complete our installation here, so let's go ahead and test everything out. So we got our tester box here, which we're going to use to test the lights. However, if you have your motorhome, you could obviously use that as well, assuming everything is working there. So here we have our tail lights, our left turn, our brake lights, and then finally our right turn. So there we go. Now we know everything's hooked up and working correctly. And that's going to do it today for our look and installation of the Roadmaster Diode 7-to-4 wire wiring kit here on our 2018 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited.